Hey guys, welcome to the Lifelong Wellness Mastermind class. Today we have uh, Gordy Bufton. He wrote a book called The Connection Effect, and he is going to tell us a little bit about it. Gordon, it's all yours. Thanks. I appreciate you
I
coming up, brother.
I appreciate it, Ed. The part that I want recorded is the testimonial of how much you like this book, and it is always it's so fascinating when I read a book, like reaching out to the author, and whether they put their information in the book, like crazy enough like me, or they don't. It's amazing when you create content and you put it out in the world, and we're always hoping that it impacts somebody, yet sometimes we have no idea. And it's so magical when, and this goes back to some of the things we'll talk about in the connection effect, but like if there's somebody creating content, like just send them a note, be like, hey, thanks for putting this out in the world. And it goes back to the butterfly effect. Every little thing has some effect. And there's been times where it's like, I spent say a year creating this book and it sold thousands of copies. And then there's times where it's like, is this really making an impact? And then like I get a call like you or an email like that you sent me a couple weeks ago going, oh my God, I reread your book. It was so powerful. Can we jump on another call? And this just goes back into like how I show up. If somebody's reaching out to me, like I'm happy to jump on a 10 or 15-minute call, or somebody I went to high school with. And this goes back to the connection effect is you never know how like what somebody's struggling with. And so you never know how just spending a little bit of time with somebody and not needing to solve it and not needing to change it. And as Simon Sinek says, is you just need to listen to somebody for 7 minutes and they can move through what it is they're struggling with. So as we as we move into this time together, just you know, I'm almost tempted to like, I'm sure everyone has their phone, like just text somebody that you love them right now. I'll do it right now. And you know, just because you don't know what somebody's going on, and anytime that I get this random text or something, it always is impactful. So we'll just pick someone, a content creator that um we obviously know Chris isn't moving, so he doesn't have anyone that he loves or loves him. So it's okay. You can do it after, or you can send an email since you're on your computer. But yeah, it's just those little things. So the first thing that I would love to do is everyone finish that? If they finish it, we can do a thumbs up. Um, cool. So now I feel my whole intention for this time that we get to spend together tonight is that you feel more connected, whether it's to yourself or somebody else. So now that you've sent those texts, like I can check it off. The rest of the time is bonus. So the first thing that I love to do at every speech around the world is something that when it was trained to me is called the one breath. So we all have a lot of things going on, and like I was saying earlier, you could be watching Netflix or hanging out with your kids or your spouse or going for a walk or hanging out with your dog. There's unlimited amount of things that you could do, and I really appreciate you spending the time with us tonight. So the first thing we're going to do is just call this one breath. And so as we're going through our days, we're just always breathing, right? And we're not paying attention. We don't know what's going on, and you're just breathing in and out. And so this is called the one breath, where you actually exhale first and then you do the inhale. And so just take a few seconds right now, check in, see how you feel, see what's going on. Maybe you feel stressed, maybe you feel happy, maybe you feel joyful, and then we'll check in after. So the first thing that we're going to do is exhale out your mouth, then inhale through your nose, hold and pause, and then exhale out your mouth. Then send your awareness to your skin. We'll do it again. So exhale out your mouth, inhale through your nose, hold and pause, exhale out your mouth, send your awareness to your skin. Do it one more time. Exhale out your mouth, inhale through your nose, hold and pause, exhale out your mouth, send your awareness to your skin. So do one or two people kind of want to share how they feel or throw it in the chat?
Yeah, I had to get out of the relaxation mode that I was in to find the button. Very relaxed. Very it was a little weird trying to breathe out first, I'll be honest, but very relaxed.
Very relaxed. Awesome. And so the thing that I love about that is you can be in the middle of a conflict or argument and do it, and the person not even know, or you could be driving and do it, and it really just takes a few seconds and allows your nervous system to reset. So that's one breath. An amazing practice that, as you guys just felt, I'm even noticing it. I'm like, oh man, I feel so much, so much softer and more present in my body. So there are endless things that we could cover. I will obviously talk about the connection effect and some of the strategies. Um, the first thing is I'll do a little bit of my story, and then we'll go into some of the practices that I use on a daily basis that I talk about in the connection effect. And then from there, we'll put a nice bow on it and go into Q&A. But like I said, my main intention for the time that we get to spend together is that you feel more connected to yourself, that you feel more connected to others, and you feel more connected to something greater than yourself. And if we only get to check off one of those boxes by sending that text, it's a success. My work is complete, and you can now go and enjoy the rest of your evening. So my childhood, I was born in Canada, and at the age of 8, we moved to the United States. So with that being said, I was always an outsider. I was made fun of in school for my accent and saying A. I never felt like the other kids, and as a result, was bullied. But I did really well in school. I always made straight A's, and then I excelled on the golf course. And from a young age, 13, I was the second best golfer in the state of Georgia. We ended up winning our state championship my junior year. And then senior year, I had a breakup and didn't know how to deal with that. My parents moved to Florida, and then I moved back to Atlanta to defend our state championship. Experienced this breakup, and it was a Friday night, and I decided to smoke pot. And I'd smoked a couple times before, but this time I was like, oh my God, this is what I was looking for. This allows me to not feel the pain and the heartbreak and the separation from my parents. And it was just anyone on this call who's an addict, like they remember that feeling of, oh, this is what I was looking for. This is my answer. And so that had me spiraling for the next 3 years. I still somehow managed to get a golf scholarship in Colorado. So I was playing golf and then smoking pot. Wasn't as focused as I had been as a kid. And then golf season ends. It's a Friday night. My best friend's over at my house, smoking pot like normal. And he's like, have you ever heard of this drug called ecstasy? I was like, yeah, of course I've heard of it. I've never tried it. And he goes, you want to try it? And that was a Friday night, and I didn't sleep until Monday. And when class rolled around on Monday morning, I was like, I'm not going to class. And so then I started doing ecstasy 3, 4, 5 days a week. And my, addiction and usage just spiraled out of control until I got pulled out. My parents found out, and they pulled me out of college. And so now I'm 18 years old, living at home. And my recovery meant going to work with my dad, who we were renovating this house. And so every single morning, he'd wake me up and we would go to work, and we'd work from like 7 a.m. to 7, 8, 9 p.m. And then we'd come home, and I would hang out, watch TV, and then I'd go to my room and I'd smoke pot and fall asleep and do it all over again. And that escape for me to smoke pot was like, it was the only thing that kind of kept me going, that I knew every day I could have this little reprieve. And wouldn't be so insurmountable that I was 18 living at home, just kind of being a drug addict. And so that went on for a couple of years, and then it spiraled out of control, and I started using cocaine and chemicals again, which isn't good for my body and my brain. And it culminated in me spending my 20th birthday in jail, which was the best birthday cake I could have ever got. It was a honey bun and a Butterfinger. And the following week was jumped in Macon, Georgia, and almost murdered, and spent a few nights homeless. And as anyone who has hit rock bottom knows, I was like, well, I can continue down this path, which will land me back in jail or dead, or I could get sober, which it should have been an easy decision, yet it wasn't. I was still thinking, oh, I can figure this out, and I could keep using. And so I made the difficult decision, and I started to get sober, and wish I could say it was all raindrop or rainbows and gumdrops, yet it wasn't. I started to deal with mental health from all the damage I'd done with all my substance abuse, and I started going in and out of psych wards. And so my second psych ward, first one I was there for 2 weeks, and it was just a complete cluster. And I saw an opportunity the second time, and I ended up escaping the psych ward, and I had 2 helicopters, 6 police dogs looking for me, and they could not find me. And the news ran, local man, naked man escapes the psych ward. That did not go over well with my parents. And then when they found me, they surrounded the house with SWAT team, and they wanted to come in with guns drawn. And my dad convinced them, no, 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 he's harmless. Like, and so, um, yeah, it was definitely a movie scene potentially one day with that scene. And then they classified me as legally insane, and the judge basically said they could keep me for 90 days, and were giving me all kinds of antipsychotic medication. After a month, my dad was like, this is ridiculous. You guys aren't doing anything. You're just locking them, giving them a few meals a day, and calling them crazy. If anyone on here has been in a psych ward, they know that you could take 20 normal people, throw them in there, and everyone's going to start to go crazy in 3 days. Um, Similar to the Stanford prison experience. And so then my mom found this amazing program in San Francisco, and I went to treatment to get off of the medication. At that point, I was choosing not to use drugs. And that was, God, 15 years ago now, and went to that program and did a 21-day sauna detox program. We found out I was highly allergic to dairy, gluten, and eggs. We eradicated that from my diet, and I can't say I've been like perfect since, but I was gluten free before gluten free was cool. And so when I was cleaning up and going through that, I go, having experienced what I experienced, and knowing that so many kids face this at the time, I thought like addiction only happened in movies and the ghettos. I didn't think it would happen to this like upper middle class kid who grew up at country clubs. And so nobody came into my high school, and I really wanted to be that voice for people that go, hey, I can't tell you not to do drugs. What I can tell you is it might make sure your dreams don't become a reality, right? As even now, right? It just takes 1 second of you're looking at your cell phone while driving, and then you plow over somebody in an intersection, or like you have a crazy health thing happen that, like one of my friends just called me this week of going, hey, I have to go in for like a double mammogram. And she's like 43 years old and just lost her vision 2 weeks ago, and like seemingly healthy person, right? And everything can change in a moment's notice. And so back then, the only way to kind of like start speaking, and this was before YouTube, this was before Facebook, and actually, I guess Facebook was around, but a lot of these other platforms. And so I wrote my first book, Eluding Reality, and started speaking on stages when I was 25 years old. So coming up on 11 years ago. And, really what motivated me, like my why, was just being able to be that voice for those kids that didn't like I didn't know when I started using ecstasy or started smoking pot, like I could become addicted and it could make me lose my dreams and golf scholarships and all that stuff. And then it evolved to working with some of the wealthiest families around the world, educating them on how to better connect with their kids and with their work. And then had a very successful speaking career, speaking around the world, and was doing it with a business partner that was a total workaholic, and I was a workaholic as well, and made one of the most difficult decisions of my life to sell him the business and basically walk away. And so I did that just before my 30th birthday. And as kind of like one of the things that came from that is I go, what do I want to? I'd hired a bunch of coaches and I go, what do I want to spend the next 10 years of my life speaking about? And what kept coming up time and time again is every part of my journey, I was always looking for connection. And I would put myself in rooms that I shouldn't be in of the most successful people. And, they'd be like, hey, teach me spiritual and mindfulness. And that's where the connection effect was birthed, and published that when I was 30. And so last year I turned 35 and I miss my book every 5 years. So I'm debating in a month when I turn 36, adding a few chapters to the connection effect and re-releasing this. So so that's part of that. And it's one of those, I believe the word for the last 2000 years was love. And there's been so many misusage of love, of when your parents go, clean your room because I love you, or I need you to do this because I love you, and it was really used as control. And so my belief is the word for the next 2000 years is connection. And the moment that you connect with somebody and you're present with them and you turn your phone off and you're fully present with them, I believe that is a higher vibration and a higher experience than love. And so the world that I'm creating or would envision is one where we're able to connect. And we are definitely at a time in history where it seems like there is more disconnection than ever, yet we're just seeing the extremes on social media because that's what gets attention and that's what gets clicks and revenue dollars. So we're seeing like the 5% on both ends of the spectrum, yet 90% are fairly close. Sure, we might have some different beliefs, but we're willing to like sit and hear those beliefs. And so, like I look at this call of all the people that are on the call, we might have different beliefs about fossil fuels. We might have different beliefs about politics, of recovery, of what health looks like. Yet we're coming together and there won't be any arguments on this call. Unless Ed decides to go at Chris again, but I think Chris has enough self-restraint not to fall into. Okay, maybe not. But that's where as leaders, as beings, we can connect. And like we did at the beginning, like just send somebody, like one of my connection things is I reach out to 100 people a day. And some I might just be encouraging them. Some might be like, hey, I saw this podcast, it made me think of you. Today I was shooting basketball, so I sent a clip of me playing basketball to a friend who she always beats me in pig. But I said I'm practicing and I'm gonna win next time. So, there are these moments throughout the day, whether it's you see a rose and a rose reminds you of Mother Mary and you send that to your mom or you send that to your partner. As we, kind of like me observing the world is like we're all starving connection. And one of the largest problems on the planet right now is loneliness, which is like, how is that even possible with how connected we are on social media and all these things? Yet, when was the last time you just sat with a friend and didn't try to solve their problems and was just present? If we were able to do that, what would the world look like? And if we'll say the leaders in Israel were to all sit down and say, hey, what is the best for humanity? What is the best way to move forward? How can we make this a win-win situation? I have friends there, and it's inspired them to love their country more. And they're raising kids there. And I went to my friend that I talked to last week. I go, so do you want to leave Tel Aviv? He's like, no, I want to live here more than ever. And I was like, you have a 2-year-old and your wife is pregnant. And he's like, yeah, there's no place I'd rather be, no other country. And I was like, okay. Like I can't experience, I mean, I could go there, but I don't know what it's like being there. And that's, as humans, we're like, oh, I must know what it's like in Ukraine right now. And I have a friend in Ukraine, and she sends me some of the videos and stuff there. And I I'm just baffled of what's happening, and the nervous system when you go, maybe today's the day where my house is going to blow up. And so many people in Western civilization have these such plush lives where they're in AC, and then they're in a heated shower, and then they're in their AC car. And one of the things that and this is Ed and I talk about, is with Jesse, is how do we get ourselves uncomfortable? And those moments where you're on a mountain and it's cold and it's windy and it sucks, but 99% of the population is just at home in their recliner doing nothing. Like, those are the moments that I crave, and those are the moments where I feel most alive. And so, yeah, that's some of it. And one of the aspects that I talk a lot about in the connection effect is relationships. As they always say, at the end of your life, you're not like, I wish I worked more. It's about those people that you loved. And how do we pause and do a reset now and go, okay, how am I showing up in my relationships? How do I want to continue to show up in my relationships? And how do I, like Ed was saying earlier, the average of your 5 closest friends, whether that's the podcast you're consuming, the books that you're reading, your friends. And so, like I mentioned earlier, I reach out to probably about 100 people a day. And sometimes they're the same people, sometimes they're different people, sometimes they're people I want to be friends with on the internet, and sometimes they're old friends from high school or college people, or people I met once at the gym who follow me on social media, or, like I said, people I want to be friends with. And just making it a habit. And I'm obviously an overachiever, but it might be 5 for you, it might be 10, it might be just 1. So making that small commitment every day. And then one of the practices, which I have not been as good the last couple of months, that I talk about in the connection effect. And if anyone wants a copy of the connection effect, just shoot me an email or message on Instagram, and I'll send you the digital copy, or you can go to like Amazon or Barnes and Noble for the hardcover. And so my email is just Gordon, GORDON 8 Bufton, BUFTON @gmail.com. So if you shoot me an email, again, Gordon 8 Bufton @gmail.com, I'll send you the PDF of the connection effect. And the favorite chapter in there, I believe the most profound chapter I've ever written in any of my books or anything I've ever written, is a chapter on digital disconnection. Because nobody has really taught us how to use social media and technology. It's kind of been dropped on us. And then the technology companies make so much money, and our attention and data is their usage. And so the more that we're on it, the more money they can make. And what I talk about in digital disconnection is, how do we take a step back, and how do we reset how we are using these technologies versus these technologies using us? And everyone on this call has had millions of pieces of information coming at them today, whether it's the news or social media or text messages or phone calls or work or emails and all this stuff. We're just bombarded all the time. One of the things I love asking is, if we can put it in the chat, What is the longest you've gone without having your phone close to you in the last week? Have you gone an hour? Have you gone like 2 hours? Um, so I'd love to see some of those responses in the chat. You know, most people sleep with their phone next to them, and the minute they wake up, they have their phone right next to them. Oh God, such an active group, 24 hours, Ed. We know Ed practice.
Gordy, you're muted. Sorry.
You're good. I don't have my phone with me now. That's good, Chris. 12 hours. That's a good solid amount. And
I
so
would say only sleep because Ed and I's job and a lot of people in the field, probably Andrea, I feel like I have to have my phone for referrals, but I hate it.
yeah, so
So it's like if I could detach, I do, like on vacation.
if
And
Ed
even
made
then
it
it's hard.
24 hours, I think you can make it
Yeah, so we
24
should
hours.
maybe you'll let me then Ed take a 24-hour hiatus.
You can do Saturdays and then he does Sundays.
Yeah. So not long, but I wish.
Average is 1 to 2 hours. Yeah. And see that's like one of the things that I talk about is we haven't done a reset. And how do we use the technology? And I can tell where my mental health is how much screen time I have. And I measure it. Like if I'm in a really good headspace, it's 2 to 3 hours a day on my cell phone. Don't talk to me about lab time usage because that can get extreme as well. And I know when I'm not in a good headspace, it's like 4 to 6 hours on my phone, whether it's scrolling social media or just doing things that aren't as productive. And so the practice that I talk about in the book is what I call silent Sundays. And it's one day a week where I just turn off technology and give my brain a reprieve. And the best part about silent Sundays is you get to midday, noon, and you go, oh my God, it feels like a whole day has already happened. And then that happens again at 3 o'clock. You're like, oh my God, I just had another full day. And then you're like, oh my God, what am I going to do with the whole rest of the night? And it's funny when I meet friends, I'm like, look, I'm gonna be here at 12 o'clock, and you better be here at 12 o'clock because I'm not gonna have my phone and I'm not gonna check. And so it's amazing how when you start testing this and practice this, how easy it is to change plans and morph things versus back in the day when it was you had a home phone and it's I think I'll meet you at this corner at this stop sign at this hour. And um, so everyone on this call remembers those times, but a lot of the people that my clients and work with now, they don't even remember never having a cell phone. They
But you
don't
know
even,
what? You become more unlikable. Like I'm like, I hear that, and it's so good. It's such a great reminder, Gordon, because like my family. I remember being with my family, and my sister said to me, "You know what? Can you take you and your phone and go somewhere else?" And I'm thinking, don't you all want to hear that I'm saving lives and I'm getting people into treatment? And don't you want to hear that I'm on one crisis call after the next and I'm so important and I'm saving lives? And I realized, like, no, they're like, you're like, you're hard to be around when you're constantly on your phone. And they weren't impressed. They're not like you're that much more special than any of us. Take you and your phone and get out if you can't put your phone down. And I realized, like, we're annoying when you're constantly on your phone and you can't be present. You can't have a conversation with someone without being fully engaged. And I've made it like a really strong mission for myself that when I'm with you, you got me.
right.
And I'm all yours. And I've made like a true commitment to that. I've had to work hard on it, but I think I've done a really good job. So I'm glad you're bringing this up.
I love it. It's so vital. And one of the stories that I love telling is I work with a lot of CEOs and executives, and when they're in a board meeting and somebody calls them, they don't answer it. And that's the way that I want them to be with their family. It's like when you're with your family for this 1 or 2 hours, there's nothing more important. And when you go to your kid, hey, I just got to take this as work, you're instantly saying to your kid, hey, this is more important than you. and most of the entrepreneurs that I work with, they go, "Oh, I only work so hard so I can provide for my family." And the family's like, "Well, you can make less money and spend more time with us. We'd rather that." And you get to some of those conditioning and programming behind it, which I love doing and I find so fascinating. Yet, how do we? And this goes back to the connection factor. How do we connect, right? And it this we'll say 90 minutes that I'm with you guys, my phone's there, yet the only thing I use it for is when I told you guys to go text somebody. My phone's on do not disturb, which I talk about in that. Like I basically live a do not disturb life. My phone is almost always on do not disturb. And so if somebody reaches out to me, like cool. Like I'll get back to you when it fits my calendar, not when it fits your calendar. And so how do we live this present and in the 90 minutes that I'm with you guys tonight, there's nothing that's going to happen on social media or the news or people reaching out to me. Like I've trained everyone in my life to know, hey, if you reach out to me, it might be 24 hours, it might be 48 hours. Like I might respond, I might not respond. And being okay with that. We're so in this culture of immediate gratification, yet everyone here who's in recovery, like, look, your voicemail should say, hey, if it's a dire emergency, call 911, or if you can't get a hold of me, call this person. And kind of having two options and set it up with the other person of, hey, when it comes to commissions and that kind of stuff, is if you're filling in for me, like we'll split the commission or we'll do this, or it's not always this is the only time that they're going to get into treatment. And if I miss them for an hour, like if you're in yoga for an hour, like if this person goes out and relapses, like that's on them. It's not your fault for filling up your own cup. And so yeah, silent Sundays are super important for me. The other practice, which has been vital that I do, I can't say every day. I'm like a 99% success rate, is I write 1,000 words a day journaling. We have, they say 80,000 thoughts a day and 60,000 are the same. And so for me, journaling allows me not to have the same. And one of the things that I've been writing about a lot the last 3 days is who is taking up space in my brain rent free? Or who are the people or what are the things that are taking up space in my brain rent free, and really moving on from that. And just journaling about that and thinking about that, whether it's, there's a phone call that I have been ignoring to make for 2 weeks. And every day I'm like, I'm going to make this phone call. And then it comes 8 o'clock and I'm like, well, I'm too tired to make that phone call. I'll do it tomorrow and another day. Right. And this is something that's taking up rent free in my brain. Andrea, it was a pleasure. Hope you enjoyed your time. Thank you. And so what is taking up space rent free, and just knocking that off, whether it's the item that you've been delaying doing, or getting a haircut, or making that phone call. I encourage you to do it. And then one of the final things is, for me, I call the 4 Fs. And over the years, the last almost 5 years, I've basically nonstop traveled the world. I was fortunate enough to spend COVID in Europe for a year, and then 2021 in South America. And the last couple of years bounced between North America, Europe, South America, North America, Europe, South America. And this goes back to what I said earlier of like being an immigrant in the US over the last couple of years, really taking a hard look of, is this a place where I want to spend the rest of my life? Is this a place where I want to raise a family? And my answer was no. And so I've taken steps to create a life outside of the US. I spent a lot of time in Portugal. I spent a lot of time in Mexico. And so taking a hard look at that. But as a result, not having a home base, I've struggled with depression and my mental health over the years. the more recent years. And so I've deciphered it down to the 4 Fs. And I know if I'm looking at this as a chair, if I have 4, everything is going great. When I have 3, it can get a little wobbly, but when I'm down to 2, that's when I can fall into a depressed cycle. So my 4 Fs are fitness. Am I exercising enough a day? And as we were talking about earlier with Chris and Ed, I like doing some extreme fitness things. I've done an Ironman. I did rim to rim to rim of Grand Canyon in a day. Would not recommend either of those, but I know I need to be like at least walking an hour a day, if not like an hour in the gym and an hour walk, or sometimes more. And so my bare minimum is an hour a day. And so that is one of my Fs. One of my other Fs is fuel. Am I eating gluten? Am I eating dairy? Am I eating sugar? What does my fuel look like? And it's easy when I'm traveling to eat gluten and eat sugar and not be as clean as my body and brain needs to be. The third is friends. Am I reaching out to friends? Am I connecting with friends? What does that look like? And then my fourth is finances. And so if my finances are in a good place, and that my other 4 usually tend to fall in a line. And I know like if I'm not exercising, I might be eating poorly, and then I'm not reaching out to friends, it's easy to slip into a depression. And so those are my four F's, as I like to call them. Like, what is my fitness? What is my fuel? What are my friends? And what is my finances like? And from there, I know that one of them like my finances could not be good, and my fitness and my fuel and my friends are good, I'm still going to be fine. Or not reaching out to as many friends, but my fitness, my fuel, and my finances are good. Usually like the friends is kind of like the last piece. When I'm not doing fitness and I'm not doing fuel and my finances, like then I stop reaching out to people. Like that's how I know I've gone sideways, because connection is so vital for me, whether it's I'm connecting with the barista at the coffee store, or I'm connecting with you guys on this call. Being present, knowing I can compliment, knowing that taking that extra 15 seconds or 30 seconds or 1 minute can drastically change somebody's life. And I was talking to one of my friends earlier who FaceTimed me, and I was telling him a story of how yesterday it was my intention to talk to a stranger and just be really present with a stranger. And I ended up having this hour-long magical conversation at this new gym that I went to in Atlanta. As I'm here for a couple weeks, and just like sat with him for an hour. And it was powerful. And had I not set that intention in my journal that day, I might have missed that opportunity to connect. And then when I went in the gym, I saw him today and he was all excited to see me because I spent that time. So I want to, just end. We are at a very interesting time in humanity. I am very optimistic of where we're going if we can connect with ourselves and we can connect with others and we connect with something greater than ourselves. It's not rocket science. Nothing that I've shared with you. You need a uh, physics, engineering, 70 different degrees. It's simple shit. It's a couple minutes a day to just really check in with yourself, be present, and allow the magic of connection to impact your life and those around you. So I'm very optimistic of where we're going and super grateful, Ed, for the time and the opportunity to spread a little bit more of the work of the connection. And like I said, it's all about connection for the next 2,000 years in my ideological viewpoint, as it will end all wars and all conflicts and all disease and discomfort, especially addiction. The opposite of addiction is not recovery, it's connection. So with that, I would love to open it up to any questions.
Gordy,
And I will,
thank you so much. Before we get into the questions, I'm just gonna stop the recording here and we'll get into the questions. But thank you again. Please see below in our notes where you can get a hold of Gordy's book or get a hold of him, I'll have all the email information in there so you can get a hold of him. Thanks, Gordy.